Guys of a Certain Age is brought to you by no one. Absolutely no one. Except these dudes walking down memory lane. Now let's head to the studio to see what they misremember next.
And we're back. No pumpkin spice here, but it's in the middle of fall. At least we hope it's going to be fall. It's Guys of a Certain Age. Robbie Koblenz alongside
Art Shirley
and Jay Reed.
So are you guys PSL people or are you pumpkin spice people? We've talked about this a little bit before.
I listened to y'all. I listened to the one y'all did without me that was food. And you talked about pumpkin spice, and I'm not. That's not something that
I should have said, Art, are you a pumpkin spice?
Yeah, because we've got Jay's.
I've already ranted.
Yeah. He likes pumpkin pie, but not pumpkin spice.
He likes the spices that appear in pumpkin pie. Right. And he's okay with those, but there is no pumpkin spice. I did listen. It was a good episode.
It was a good episode, so it should be.
But yeah, I'm not opposed to it, but I'm typically just a black coffee person.
So. But I will do things like now. I was just in the store earlier. Can I have some now? They have pumpkin spice M&Ms out right now.
That's disgusting.
And so I will buy those one time and try them.
Yeah.
And something like that. Like this today, I actually got it's not pumpkin spice, but a snickerdoodle flavored Twix.
Yeah.
And so I'll buy that one time. If I love it, I might get it again. But usually I just get
Madison Avenue loves you, Jay.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Have you tried the Reese's Oreo?
I have tried. Yes, I've tried the Reese's Oreo. I was unimpressed.
What about the Oreo Reese's?
Yes.
What about the Oreo Speedwagon?
Can't fight this Oreo anymore.
Yeah, I'm underwhelmed by both.
Okay.
The Reese's Oreo just tastes like a peanut butter Oreo, which they've had before.
Yeah.
So is there an Oreo Reese's? I was just kind of making that up.
No. A couple of weeks ago, I saw that came out. And
now I've only had like the mini cups that have, and it's like a Reese's on the bottom. It's got white cream on top. And then cookie crumbs inside, and it's okay.
Yeah,
but it doesn't. I was expecting more.
Yeah,
but I'm waiting for
kind of like big listeners to this podcast.
Yeah, no kidding. So if the big cup comes out, I'll try them again. But I love Reese's, I love Oreo, but I don't think this was a classic mashup.
So you don't think the mashup was worth the what it cost you? In time and money.
I mean, they all got eaten. Nothing was wasted.
These are horrible as we finish the bag.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't protest. Ye doth protest too much.
I did not. I doth not.
Doth not. Doth
What's
not.
the past tense of doth?
Donut. I donut protest. Protest with donuts. Sure.
There's something there.
There's something there, but
yeah, let's do.
We have a pumpkin spice flavored cream cheese at Dolce that's really good, and then we've got
not against that.
We've got an apple cinnamon cream cheese.
That sounds really good.
That's got apple chunks.
Yeah,
in
that
it.
sounds really good.
That is unbelievable.
I prefer that.
It would be slap Mrs. Reed good.
Okay.
Or slap your mama good, whichever one.
Yeah, I'll let
your mama is
that.
Mrs. Oh no,
I will not be involved in any slapping.
She's already pulling up the Facebook right now
Right.
to tag me and probably to do a rebuke to me and tag both of y'all. So she's coming for us.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry.
All right.
For you.
Yeah, for
We're
me.
good.
Yeah. Well, no, you're going to get drug into the conflict with me. I'm going to use Jay as my shield. You think that would work? No, probably not. She'd come
Rusty,
through.
maybe, but
she would come through him to get to me any day.
Right.
So let's get into Geeks of the Week. Who's got Geeks?
This is just a small geek. I'll go first, Jay. I'm sorry to jump in front of you, usually going first. But, just saw there's been a lot of discussion about the next James Bond and what's going on with that, and people have. I saw a writer or a former writer. It was somebody who had written James Bond novels, and he said he was glad he didn't have the task of rebooting James Bond after the last Daniel Craig movie. Did y'all ever see that? Did y'all see the one?
I'm sure I did, but I don't know.
Okay. Spoiler alert! By this point, I can't remember the name of it.
Was it Spectre?
No, it's the one where he dies. They kill the character off.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. I thought it was great. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was, but it was just kind of another James Bond movie in a lot of ways. And so they're saying, well, how are you going to bring it back? And I'm thinking that doesn't matter. You're going to bring back a new James Bond. It's not. You don't overthink that.
No Time to Die.
No Time to Die, and apparently was.
Yeah,
but So, and thank you for finding that. But I don't think that's a big hang up. I don't think people are going to go, wait a minute, this guy, some people will, but it's like, we don't really care about their continuity. We do it in mind that when the character looked completely different, when George Lazenby took over, or Roger Moore took over, or
he regenerates.
That's what that came up. And
Dr. Bond.
We've talked about this before.
Who?
One of the
Dr. Bond.
Oh, Dr. Bond. But we've talked about that before. That to me is still one of the best ways to talk about replacing the Doctor Who thing they came up with. But anyway, what they're going to do this way to maybe avoid this controversy or whatever, or to probably get a younger actor, I think is the bigger grab.
Younger equal cheaper.
Younger equal cheaper, depending on who they get.
Yeah, because we're old and we're cheap.
The people I saw, the picture I saw in supporting the article was Tom Holland, Spider-Man fame, in a tuxedo.
He's not that young, though.
Well, I guess he's younger than you think James Bond is, but hey, maybe he just looks that young. He probably is not that much younger than, James Bond would be starting off his career.
Gee, Mr. Stark.
It's a prequel.
Yeah, he plays Peter Parker, so
it's a prequel, yeah.
So you would have Robert Downey Jr. as M, right?
Yeah.
Or
John Favreau.
John Favreau is M, and then Robert Downey Jr. would be Q.
Yeah. That would be kind of fun. But anyway, that's what the direction is. They're going with a prequel as opposed to, do you see how he gets his start?
No, kind of like fun.
Kind of like young Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
We named the dog Indiana. You know what I'm talking about?
I remember that line.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember that line?
Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for leaving me hanging.
Well,
there.
I thought you were going to hit the crickets button there.
Yeah, I probably should have. Yeah, we do have crickets, don't we? Where are the crickets? Where are the crickets?
They're third down on the left.
Is it third down on the left? Look at you. Or probably more
now
proper.
I am going to doze off. Yeah, there you go. That's better. Yeah,
that should be our standard default sound effect.
So anyway, that's all I have.
Yeah, and it's still going to be a movie, correct? Not a series.
Yeah, they kind of went back and forth since Amazon. Wait, is it Amazon?
It's Amazon who bought it.
Has it? There was thought, is it going to be a extended series or a limited series? And it's still a movie at this point. So.
At this point. Yeah. So we'll find out what's going to happen there. So, Jay, you got some geekage?
I do. Yeah. It actually kind of relates to
this decade.
It relates, I think, somewhat to what we're going to, to your interview later. You know how we're in Mississippi, 2 states away from Georgia, and Georgia has kind of become this is not a travel thing. Georgia's kind of become a big place to do movies, particularly a bunch of Marvel movies, or at least parts of them.
Well, there's an Airbnb.
Yeah, right.
Well, Walking Dead.
There is some extra space. I mean, they mentioned that in this thing I was listening to, Walking Dead, Stranger Things, a lot of Marvel stuff. But apparently Marvel is kind of leading the pack away from Georgia. Because of, I think primarily because of labor costs is what the guy I was listening to said. They got to pay healthcare and all that kind of stuff here, and being on that one side of healthcare, I can understand that. So they're kind of moving stuff. Marvel's kind of going to UK.
They are, because also there in UK, it's public health insurance, so they don't have to pay a healthcare premium.
Right. So there's that, and I get they mentioned Canada and Australia too. Yeah. But anyway, what that has kind of dropped Georgia in a big, kind of a funk, because I think Georgia's appeal was a 30% tax credit, something like that.
Yeah, it would depend on what it is, but anywhere from 28 to 35.
Yeah, but a big tax credit. And he said that in 2022 there was like 412 major projects in Georgia. In 2025 fiscal year, 245. So it's dropped almost by half.
Wow,
it's crazy. I've got friends who can't find work.
Right. Well, apparently, this a bunch of side industries came up. The catering and the studios. Something called Trilith Studio, I think.
Oh, rental trucks, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, everything that was required is built up, and there's like 20,000 jobs affected.
Yeah.
So big deal. I mean, I always thought it was kind of cool that these big movies that we were talking about and going to were filmed, just hours away from us. And I talked to somebody. I was in Rome, Georgia. I think we talked about this before, a year or two ago, and saw one of the Stranger Things sites, or one of the houses that's in that. And in Walking Dead from North Georgia as well.
Yes,
And I talked to somebody recently who had been involved or had been in the city where it happened, and talked about, how people or coming along and sitting and, having dinner in the cafes and that kind of stuff. So, with all that leaving, that's going to leave a big hole.
I mean, think about how many times you saw that Made in Georgia tag at the end of something.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
Georgia Film Commission was huge. It was the one of the most active. Louisiana still got some pretty active incentives.
I was going to say, for a while before Georgia hit, everybody's going to New Orleans to do stuff.
Yeah, New Orleans,
of course, out into Louisiana and stuff because it was so economical to do things there. Then it moved, and Austin, Texas had it for a while.
25 years ago, it was Vancouver.
Yeah,
Film incentives in Vancouver were great.
And Vancouver still had. It was Vancouver that still had a lot of the CW stuff, right? Everything moved from Los Angeles. Like Supergirl started for CBS and was in Los Angeles, and then when it became CW only, it moved everything to Vancouver.
Yeah. Dollar was stronger, and that's why you would have Battlestar Galactica actors show up on Stargate.
Yes,
and vice versa.
Right. They were all, so it goes back that far too.
Yeah,
you talk about
yeah, it does. So Sci-Fi would put a lot of stuff up there because the dollar would go further, and you had
all that stuff. Eureka, Warehouse 13, all that stuff was shot in Canada.
You had some nice boutiques who could do work quickly. So I mean, I think I've talked on the show before how the Rob Lowe show The Floor, which is on Fox, is shot in Ireland or Scotland, somewhere in the UK. They fly the contestants over.
Okay.
It is cheaper to fly American contestants to the UK to shoot and produce than to do it here.
Gosh, that is something.
Yeah.
Wow.
So just waiting for a tariff to drop. Oh, probably shouldn't talk about that. So, but it's something. I mean, and the thing is, producers are chasing the lowest dollar everywhere they can go.
Yeah.
And the last place they'll go back to is Hollywood. So, I mean, I've got friends in the post-production industry, friends are in the production industry looking for work. I mean, I've got a friend who's an editor. She hasn't worked in 2.5 years.
Gosh, no.
So, and I mean, she was working on Legends of Tomorrow and Supergirl.
All that stuff, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she had some really nice credentials. So, and as you start to see things like, I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's back on air, but Colbert's going off, and we don't talk politics this show, but for Colbert to go off, I mean, that's 200, 300 staff jobs,
And you wonder, again, not political, just but entertainment wise, what are they putting in that hole? Because I don't know that they're going to go to another late night show. They've tried, in the traditional sense. I think they will do something late night that is, maybe a cheaper thing to produce, may not have as many celebrities on it,
So reality and game shows.
So that's what I'm saying is I would think it's probably some kind of late night game show where they can get away with a little bit bawdier humor than they do. Although it's hard to imagine, that they do that. But you think about, and those are pretty economical to produce. At most you've got a celebrity host, and then you've got regular contestants.
And their night wheel.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
well,
right.
I mean, so when Kimmel was, I mean, this is airing weeks later than when it happens. When Kimmel, and in some cases, Kimmel is still off, I think, some Sinclair stations.
20% of his former audience.
Yeah. And so they were putting Celebrity Family Feud in that place. So, I mean, it's just the demographics have changed dramatically for broadcast television. And I think you're going to see this, cascade across all the networks. So.
I mean, I can remember when CBS didn't have, NBC is the only one that really had a late night show. There was the night show. And then you went into Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I loved that show.
That was a great show.
But CBS would put on a late movie. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where I saw Planet of the Apes and Soylent Green, all this stuff for the first time, because they would have every night, they would have, some type of course, the station would go off the air usually at 12 o'clock midnight, right? So,
well, that's when they stole Letterman over and started the late night show with David Letterman. Yeah. And then ABC came in at 10:30 with Nightline, which came
Ted Koppel,
which came out of the Iranian hostage crisis.
Yes.
And then they brought in, was Kimmel the first late night that they jumped in on, or was there somebody prior to Kimmel?
Gosh, I feel like there was somebody before that, but I'm not sure who that would have been. It seemed like it was Nightline for a long time.
Yeah.
And Ted Koppel retired somewhat, kind of went, and of course he left and went he's on CBS now. But Yeah, I think it may have been because Kimmel's been doing this for 25 years. It said, right?
Yeah, Bill Maher, his show was on.
Oh, okay. That was short lived, though. Wasn't it?
Yeah. And he lost that slot after 9/11. So
okay.
Anyway, it's television consumption has changed. Is what we're trying to get to. Not from a political standpoint, but
no, it's. I mean, the thing is, most of us, don't watch shows the same way. We're not going to tune in at 10:30 or whatever to watch a show. A lot of times what we'll do is if there's something happened, we'll go back and watch the YouTube clips to see what it was.
To me, the show that I'm still amazed is being produced like it has for 50 years is Saturday Night Live.
I was just about to say the same thing. Yeah. And it's almost like it's got a perpetual, like, let's just keep it going because now we've hit 50 and let's see what we can do. Yeah. I don't know how much longer it will be. On the air, just because it's probably, they can't replace the cast. They go back, younger people, they get a new cast so that the salaries are more manageable.
Who's Bargatze? What's his name?
Nate Bargatze. Yeah.
What's his first name?
Nate.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching his stuff. He's hilarious.
He's good, isn't he? He's just so relatable.
Deadpan.
I watched a clip today where he was back on the Conan show back in his earliest days. He looks completely different.
Yeah. He looks like he's 12.
He talks about,
but still just as funny.
Absolutely.
One of the things that he talked about, he's a big Vandy fan because he's in Nashville. Yeah. But he said, Vandy has asked me to make sure you guys know I did not attend.
Yeah, that's right. I
mean, he would be great on this show. That's what. Yeah. So, anyway,
he would be. Yeah.
He would. He is a guy of a certain age. So, all right, that's your geek. We've gone long. What's your geek there?
He's already.
Did you already do
I've already done.
Yeah. What was your geek?
The Marvel.
That's what got us on the movie.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So, what's your geek?
I don't really have one now at this point.
Okay. Well, why don't we move on to whatever you've got next?
Why don't we jump into the last? Oh, I will tell you, this just came across. It's going to be outdated by the time you listen to this, but Starbucks has announced they're going to be closing hundreds of stores.
Wow.
And a restructuring.
Mm-hmm. No touch of the Battlestar Galactica referenced earlier.
No. Or the pumpkin spice.
No. Go to Dolce.
Come full circle.
Yeah, which was a great Doctor Who episode from Tom Baker's last season. Go to Dolce for superior coffee. Go support your local independent coffee shop. Don't drink burnt coffee. I mean, and if you've got to go to Starbucks, get the blonde roast and thank me later. Do not get the house roast. Get the blonde roast. You'll be much happier. Unless you like drinking tar. Do you like drinking tar?
I do not.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a break. We've got a second part of our interview with Steve Taylor up next. All right, something a little bit different. It's a two-part interview. We had rock star, auteur, filmmaker extraordinaire Steve Taylor join me for about an hour. Now we're going to talk about his movie Sketch he produced and a little bit more of his recent career. Here's my interview with Steve Taylor. Well, your first feature was The Second Chance with Michael W. Smith, correct?
Right, yes.
Talk a little bit about that. I've never seen it, but I can't imagine Smitty as a leading man on, but I mean, that was what, 05, 06, somewhere in that ballpark?
Yeah, I think it came out in 06. And Michael had never at that point acted to my knowledge, and wasn't a particularly natural actor, but we spent a day with him running some scenes before we offered him the role and felt like he could do a reasonable version of, a character not too unlike himself. And he did a pretty good job. The scenes where he's not as good or doesn't look as comfortable were my fault, because it's important when you're working with any actor, and especially someone who's doing it for the first time, just always giving them some kind of activity to do. And for the most part, Michael looks pretty relaxed, and the scenes where he doesn't look as relaxed were because I hadn't done my homework and come up with a good activity for him to do while he was delivering his lines. But he was a good presence and a great collaborator. And overall, it was a good experience. And a lot of the themes resonate really well today, because it was the story of Michael plays the associate pastor at a big suburban mega church. They have a sister church and urban, primarily Black church downtown that they support. And through a series of circumstances, Michael gets sent to that Black church to work with the pastor there, who doesn't really want him around. And they have to figure out a way to get along. And it dealt with a lot of issues that, we're still facing today when it comes to race relations in America.
What was the studio that released that?
That was through Sony distribution. Yeah.
So how was that, seeing that on the big screen for the first time?
It was fun. It was like my first feature. The mistakes were all mine because I had Final Cut. And for the most part, it worked pretty well. We had a really good co-star for Michael, a guy named Jeff Obafemi-Carr, who played the Black Pastor. And he did a great job, and the supporting cast was really strong as well. Ben Pearson shot the movie and did a good job. I think overall it turned out reasonably well.
Now, your next feature is one that I have seen and have read the book, Blue Like Jazz, the adaptation of Don Miller's bestseller. Man, walk me through that, because those are biographical essays. How did you decide that, hey, this would make a great film, and just walk through that process a little bit?
Well, if you've read the memoir, it's not a memoir where you finish it and think, wow, this has to be a movie. It's really a collection of essays, kind of a lot of them sort of stream of consciousness. But the basic idea is that Don, who had grown up in a pretty strict Southern Baptist environment in suburban Houston, decided to move to Portland, Oregon in his 30s, and got a place with some other guys off near the campus of Reed College in Portland, Oregon, which I think the Princeton Review called the most godless campus in America.
Yeah.
And it's famously where Steve Jobs went for a semester or two and took some classes. And Don writes about the experience of just kind of fish out of water coming from Texas and then now being in Portland, and just what that experience was like. And it was a book that just really caught on. It came out at the right time, and ended up selling over 1 million copies, which is a big deal in the publishing world. And I thought it made for an interesting dynamic. I felt like I understood that story because I'd grown up in a pretty conservative home. My dad is a Baptist minister, and I ended up going to Colorado University in Boulder, which was one of the most radical campuses in the country. And the attempt to try to bridge the chasm between, my upbringing and this new environment was took some work and effort. And so I wanted to bring all that into creating this movie based on Don Miller's experience. The big change that we made was I felt Don, in this case, the character of Don needed to be a college student who lived the experience instead of someone who is older and auditing classes. So we made that change. So
did you just find his contact info and reach out to him through, either a cold call or mutual acquaintances? How do you pitch that idea to a content owner like that? Right. Well, Don was in Nashville doing a reading of Blue Like Jazz, and this was before the movie, or before the book had been at all successful. But when I showed up to go to the reading, there was a line stretched around the block at this Belcourt Theater where he's going to do the reading. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. And he did a really good job. And then afterwards, a mutual friend introduced us. And Don was actually familiar with my music career, so that helped kind of ease us into it. And afterwards, I said, hey, I'm interested in turning this into a movie. What do you think? And he was intrigued. And it turned out that weekend, the Second Chance was opening across the country. So he ended up seeing the movie in Portland that weekend and got back to me on Monday and said, hey, I think this is a good idea. Let's try it. And he was involved in the script and story, correct? He was. That was not the original idea, but he said, I'd like to be involved in working on the script. And I said, well, have you ever written a screenplay before? And he has said, no, but I'd like to learn. And usually in those situations,
you do not want the writer involved in the writer of the memoir involved in writing the screenplay because so much is going to have to change. And at the same time, I realized, well, Don doesn't have to say yes to me optioning his book. So I said, well, let's give it a try. And I sent him to go to a seminar called the Story Seminar, run by Robert McKee, who was kind of America's preeminent screenwriting guru. And that experience really affected the real Don Miller. And he ended up, in many ways, it kind of changed the trajectory of his career as well. And he got really obsessed with story and how stories affect lives, and kind of built from that his current business, which is Story Brand, and using storytelling as a way to market ideas and products.
Boy, I've never seen anybody pivot in their career like Don Miller, and so I've read a couple. I've read Story Brand, and he's got another book. I've got it on the shelf, and I was part of his subscription model. Great stuff, but so different. I mean, I guess the question is, when is Story Brand the movie coming out?
That's, if that ever happens, that'll probably be done by someone else. But weirdly enough, he ended up having me come and take building a Story Brand and turn it into a kind of like a radio play. And I had a blast doing it. So you can actually find the Building a Story Brand radio theater project online. It's where we turned it into a story about two brothers who have a company that's starting to go under, and they use the book, and it turns things around. And it's actually pretty funny and pretty engaging.
Well, his method works really well, and I know some professionals who are Story Brand certified, and they have built their consulting career on Story Brand. So, back to the movie. One of the things I find fascinating about Blue Like Jazz was your utilization of Kickstarter, because I believe at that time, it was 2012, 2011, somewhere in there. You guys did a Kickstarter for production cost, and
it was the end of 2010.
Okay,
Kickstarter had barely become a thing. It was, I don't think, months old. I don't think it had been around for a year at that point.
Well, you raised $350,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, at the time, it was the biggest crowd-funded project in history. Of course, it's been passed over many times since then, but I think if you talk to the Kickstarter founders, they would say the Save Blue Light Jazz campaign was when we realized, hey, maybe we have a thing here.
And you, one of your perks was, for everybody who donated $10 or above, you would call them, correct?
Yes. I didn't think it was going to work. So, we were just trying to figure out ways to create perks. Even the perks there just wasn't a well-trod path at that point of how you do this. So we were kind of making it up as we went. And so we said, hey, give us $100 or more and we'll put you in the credits as an associate producer. And we ended up with 1,600 associate producers at the end credits on the left-hand side, or the normal credits on the right-hand side, scrolling by quite a bit faster, or 1,600 names.
Wow.
But the real kicker was, since I didn't think it was going to work, I said, give us $10 or more and I will call you and thank you personally. And I ended up with over 3,000 names. Took me a year to make all the calls, but I made them all.
Man, I mean, how crazy is that? 3,000 calls. My research said 3,300 total, and it took. I mean, knowing you, probably nice 10-minute conversations. It's not a thank you for donating, click, you're gone, right?
Well, the thing I would hear the most is, hey, look, I know you got a lot of calls to make, so I won't keep you too long. But people were very kind and very excited to be a part of it. And it was actually really fun to talk to all these people. They were genuinely enthused that something like that was being made, and I think felt real ownership in the project.
Well, you have done some really cool Kickstarters, and you're one of the guys I think who've kind of figured out the secret sauce behind Kickstarter. I mean, the Chagall project, the Russ Taff project, and we won't get into all those. Even though I do have a question for you: when is the Ryman concert of the Chagall reunion show? When's that going to release? When's that video?
Oh man, the video is done, but we keep getting more ambitious. So now Dave in particular really wanted to have some kind of accompanying documentary, mini documentary. And so we're in the thick of that now. So that would be an extra on the DVD. And I mean, by the time this is finally done, will there even be any DVD players left? I don't know.
There's very, very few out there. I mean, I've got a little side business where we take consumer video and we used to bump it to DVD. Everybody wants MP4s now. And so we're doing things to USB flash drives, and,
right.
DVDs are fast going the way of the dodo. So
yes, that's right.
Well, let's transitioning a little bit more modern. Talk about your work at Lipscomb. You're the filmmaker in residence. How did that happen?
After Blue Like Jazz, I realized that I had never gotten a proper film education. I had taken all the classes that Colorado University had to offer, but they were all, you weren't allowed to tell a story. It was all avant-garde filmmaking. So I went to, I took classes because I wanted to learn how narrative filmmaking works. And I really didn't learn much about how it works because that's not what they did. So after that, it was all kind of trial and error. And I never learned master scene technique or the 180 rule or eyeline matches or anything like that. And I just thought it would be really nice to go to a proper film school, get a grad degree in it, and, learn the things that I'd kind of picked up along the way via trial and error. But there was nothing in the region. There was no MFA film program in my region. And I would have to go to Chicago or New York or Florida, and I have a family. So Lipscomb University found out that I was interested in this, and they said, why don't you come here and we will start a grad film program and you can kind of put it together and be the filmmaker in residence. And I was like, aren't you supposed to start with an undergrad degree film program first? And they were like, I mean, that's how it usually goes, but there's no rule that says you have to. So they let me kind of put the program together in a way that I thought would be helpful. And, they paid me as a filmmaker in residence. It was kind of a too good of an opportunity to pass up. And also it turns out that if you want to get good grades in your grad school, just be the person who hires the professors. So
that's hilarious. You mean Belmont or MTSU did not have an MFA in filmmaking?
No.
Really?
I think this is the only program in the South, as far as I know. I know there was nothing else in Tennessee.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, that kind of gets us a little more modern day as we get towards sketch. Talk about how you met Seth Worley.
I actually met Seth when I was working on my first movie, The Second Chance. We needed a scene to take place in a big megachurch sanctuary where in the story, they have invited the pastor of their sister urban church to come and speak to the congregation. And while the pastor is kind of giving the pitch for, why you should help our church, he just realizes that nobody in that audience of over 1,000 people is listening to anything he has to say. And so he takes the pledge card and just tosses it into the audience and says, you know what, keep your damn money. And we needed a church that would let us shoot that scene and utter a mild swear word from the pulpit. And the guy who worked it out was the music pastor at a big church in Brentwood, Tennessee, a suburb of Nashville, called Brentwood Baptist. And because he loved Michael W. Smith, he worked it out for us to do that. And we brought in, over 1,000 extras to be there for the audience. And it was a huge favor. And so at the end of it, he really wasn't asking for anything. But the one thing he did say is, hey, my son is a budding filmmaker. Could you take a look at his short films on his DVD? And I'm like, well, of course I will. Happy to. And I had very low expectations. And it turned out his son, Seth Worley, at 19 years old, was already an incredible filmmaker and had made these really interesting short films. And I was just really impressed. So I hired Seth to shoot second unit on that movie, and then hired him to do second unit on Blue Like Jazz. We collaborated on other projects. He directed the Kickstarter video that I did for the Perfect Foil project, where I go to the Department of Music Veterans to get my license to rock back. Yeah. And he had me act in some of his short films and directed a music video for the Perfect Foil. And we just collaborated on a bunch of things, and I just became his biggest fan. So it turned out he sent me the first draft of the first act of what later became Sketch, like in 2017, just to get my take on it. And I gave him a few minor notes, but mostly I was just like, wow, this is great. I can't wait to see what else you come up with. So he kept me in the loop a bit, but moved his family out to Los Angeles to pursue, try to get this film made along with other things, and got an agent and met Tony Hale out there, who ended up starring in Sketch, and just came really close, but ultimately just couldn't land the funding for it. Ultimately, no studio in LA was interested in funding Sketch. So he moved back to Nashville. I think he was kind of discouraged, and I met him just to catch up for coffee and asked him what was going on with Sketch, and he said, it's dead. Like, nobody wants to make it. And I was like, no, man, that's too good. So I said, give me the latest version of the script. And I read it, and then I got back with him and said, we can make this movie, but we just got to be scrappy. You're going around asking for permission. Let's just find a way to get it done. And I'm terrible at raising money, but within a couple of weeks, I had 2 different parties who were willing to put up a budget that essentially was lopping a zero off of the original budget that was being pitched to studios. And because Seth is so good, and so good with visual effects as well, I just felt like it's a movie we could pull off in our own backyard. And we could work with a lot of the people that Seth and I had collaborated with over the years, and make it with a Nashville-based crew. And Tony was on board and was also a producer on it and did a great job. And it's just one of those projects. It was not an easy film necessarily to make, especially due to the amount of visual effects work that needed to be done. But it turned out really beautifully.
I know Seth through NAB. I was part of a group that did a big Monday night dinner at National Association of Broadcasters. It was a ticketed event called the Media Motion Ball. I was one of the co-chairs of that, and Red Giant, who Seth has worked for through the years, was one of our big sponsors. And so got to know Seth through that, and I loved what he did with Plot Device, which I think is one of the most brilliant films he did for Red Giant, showing all the color effects that the Red Giant plugin system could do. And and Seth was telling me, I was congratulating on him and on it, and just said, oh man, this was great. I loved it. He said, you know what happened? He cast his little brother. I believe that's his brother who's the lead, right? Yes. And so his mother, apparently their mom went a gaga over the little brother's performance and just kept raving. And he's like, Mom, it's my film. Come on.
Right.
So,
yes.
He told me that when Plot Device dropped, man, it got so many views and it created such a buzz. And his phone started to ring, and he took meetings. Folks wanted to know, what do you have, happening next? And I may have remembered him talking about the genesis of Sketch. But I knew that he was a little frustrated at that point. And I haven't talked to Seth in years, so I don't, it's been great to see him bounce back. Talk about Darker Colors, which I just watched a while ago before we jumped on the call. That's the spiritual predecessor to Sketch. I mean, that's his proof of concept. What was the involvement there? I know it's a Red Giant film, and he used it as a proof of concept for what you can do with Red Giant plugins. How does that fit in the timeline?
Yeah, so he did a Kickstarter, I think, to do the proof of concept for Darker Colors, which essentially got renamed Sketch later. And I helped out a little bit, just helping him with some locations and some free crew and things like that. But Dark Colors to me was the proof that he could pull this off. The thing that, wasn't as great is he could only afford to use local kid actors, and they were fine, but they just weren't the level that you need when you're trying to pull off a feature. And so that was the big difference is he just needed to find a higher quality of kid actors that's very hard to cast great kids. And I think he really pulled it off on Sketch, and our casting director Jessica Sherman was a big part of that.
Yeah, the kids were great. We watched Sketch last night. I actually bought Sketch, so maybe
nice.
You guys will get a couple pennies of residuals there.
Yes, thank you.
Once it gets through the angel filter.
Right.
At what point did you come on as an official producer on the project?
Yeah, I came on almost 3.5 years ago. So I was just getting ready to go to Taiwan to shoot a movie there that I produced called Sun Moon, and I'd gotten with Seth right before I left for Taiwan just to catch up with him, and that's when I found out that Sketch was, according to him, officially dead. And so I read the script in Taiwan, and when I got back from there, that's when I pitched him on the idea of, let me see if I can find money for this. And I think he was skeptical that I could, but once I did, everything went really, really fast. Like so fast that I ended up having to put a lot of the pre-production on credit cards because we couldn't afford to slow it down and wait for the official checks to come in. So it was a pretty big rush to try to get ready to shoot it.
And 4 weeks of pre-production, is that what I heard Seth talk about?
Yes, I think it was about 4 weeks. I mean, which is crazy, except that you could make the argument that he'd been in pre-production for 7 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So
when you do the good, fast, cheap triangle, we wanted it good and it had to be cheap, but we couldn't make it fast. But in fact, we kind of could because he'd been in pre-production for so long.
Well, watching his talk at the Red Giant conference or the Maxon conference and talking about how they took LiDAR scopes of locations so they were able to virtually walk through in light. Fascinating, just absolutely fascinating. It's a visual effects heavy show, and we really, really, really enjoyed it. The story was great. It was tight. It moved constantly. It did have a Stranger Things vibe to it,
right?
But very, very unique. So, all right, you guys make it. You don't have a major. You've got backers, but you don't have a distributor.
Right.
You go to Toronto International Film Festival. Walk me through what happened. Walk me through how you got into Toronto and then what happened after that.
Well, Toronto was the one that we really wanted to get into. Out of all the festivals, it's the one that felt the most kind of filmmaker friendly, the one that felt the least kind of agenda driven. And it's just known for being a great festival where the audiences are really good. And we felt like this movie was a 4-quadrant movie that it could be enjoyed by anybody. So we were thrilled to get into Toronto. And after the screenings, they did, of course, the premiere screening, and that went really well. And then they did some follow-up screenings during the festival, and those went really well. And the buzz was big, and our representatives for film agents from UTA, they were so excited that they were convinced that we'd have a deal before we checked out of the hotel, which I certainly wish they wouldn't have said. But it looked like it was going to be a bidding war between, multiple companies, and then it just sort of dragged on and on. And I think some of the companies got cold feet because they couldn't come up with any good comp. And Hollywood is based on, oh well, because this movie did well, now we have confidence that we can do a movie that's kind of like it, and we won't lose our shirts. And there were no comps for a live action family movie based on an original idea. It's like you had to go back to Home Alone or something like that. Like most family movies these days are animated, and if they're not, they're based on existing books or sequels or remakes or all those things. And this didn't check any of those boxes. And I think some companies, even though they loved the movie, they were just hesitant about trying something that was that different. So by the time 3 or 4 months had gone by and Christmas was rolling around, I saw that Angel Studios had sent us an email back when Toronto was happening and wanted to see a screener. And I knew that wasn't going to be anybody's first choice. So I just forwarded it to the UTA reps, and they had never followed up. Anyway, I got back in touch with the head of acquisitions at Angel, and he was really excited to see the movie. And so I sent him a screener, and he came back 2 days later, said, "Hey, I ended up showing this to all the department heads. We would love to make this movie an Angel release." And they ended up being really good partners. They were great to work with. They did things that I don't think any other distributor would have done, just in being really aggressive, getting the word out. They gave us an incredible premiere in Los Angeles, where they took some of the monsters and turned them into what do you call those when you turn them into like blow up monsters, right? So
Yeah.
like the blind one,
Yeah.
they turned into inflatables, right? Like a 20-foot inflatable.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it was great. It was kind of like old school Hollywood premieres where they just pulled out all the stops, and it was a blast.
Now I think you had to do a few minor changes on what screened at Toronto in order to meet Angel distribution standards. But I mean, maybe a little bit of language cleanup, but there weren't wholesale changes that you had to.
Oh no, not at all. It was just, yeah, I think one of the main ones is the characters said, "Oh my God,"
Yeah.
a few too many times, and so they asked if we could tweak that, and I was, of course, fine with doing that, and so was Seth. So yeah, the amount of things that got changed were really minor, partly because Seth, when I got the funding for the movie, I told the potential people that wanted to fund it, I said, "Just so you know, Seth gets final cut." And that is not typical at all for, frankly, anybody these days, but especially for a first-time director. So ultimately, Seth was the one who had to sign off on any changes.
Now, did I see correctly? $9 million box office against a $3 million budget. Are those fairly accurate?
Right. Yes, those are pretty accurate. Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How did it feel? I mean, to get this into distribution, to get it on, I mean, you've seen your stuff on the big screen, but you had nationwide distribution with this. Talk about how that made you guys feel as a team.
It was a big relief because by the time the movie came out, it was almost 3 years after we shot it. And there's just so many movies that just ended up falling through the cracks. And, eventually getting dumped onto a streamer with no marketing or anything like that. So I think finally knowing the movie was going to be in theaters nationwide and actually worldwide, because they've put it out theatrically in most of the world, was just a big relief. And, not only did Seth work really hard, Tony Hale worked really hard and did a ton of press. And it was just nice to finally be able to have that experience of a premiere in LA and to tell friends, hey, you can actually go to a theater and see this.
I bought it last night off of Apple TV through their purchase platform. I know.
Well, thank you.
Well, and I know Angel has got it. You can become part of the Angel Guild, whatever their streaming platform is. Is there anywhere else that it's going to stream, like a Netflix or a Hulu, or are there any talks of trying to get it to another party streamer?
Yes, I'm sure that'll happen. I'm guessing before the end of the year. So they go through different windows, and so they try to make the most of each theatrical window, and then premium video on demand, and then ultimately do a streaming service where they'll license it.
Now, we've kind of buried the lead a little bit, because the thing that I was most fascinated by is the fact you have 3 letters behind your name now.
Yes, thank you for noticing.
Well, that's a huge deal for me. And so you're part of the Producers Guild of America, which is the work group, trade group for movie producers. Simple definition. What is a producer in cinema?
Yes. So according to the Producers Guild, they have a checklist of all the things you have to have done on a movie in order to qualify for the PGA mark. But the way I describe it is just simply this: producing is filmmaking minus all the fun parts.
Oh, that's great.
I can't think of a better way to put it. It's like, I've directed movies. Obviously, I know how that works. Producing is just like, you're definitely part of the filmmaking team. That's why, at the Oscars, the best picture doesn't go to the director, it goes to the producer. I always thought that wasn't fair, that it should have gone to the director. Now that I'm a producer, I think it's totally fair and appropriate.
Of course, it's totally fair and appropriate. So I looked through some of the requirements, some of the qualifications for. How long have you been trying to get the PGA mark?
Oh, I think I applied for it. Oh man, maybe March or something like that. And then they go through a whole process of interviewing different people that worked on the movie and confirming things. You kind of write out an essay of all the things you did to qualify for it, and then ultimately they let you know whether you qualified or not. And it's a pretty thorough process, and partly was started, I think, because there can be so many producers on a movie, and nobody really knows who really did what. And so it was a way to kind of make specific who were the people who actually are responsible for getting the movie made. In case of Sketch, I think Tony was a huge part of that as well, and deserves to get the mark. And his producing partner, Dusty Brown, who I'd not met before until the movie started, but also was a huge part of that. And then you don't want to minimize other people involved, because they all played their role, and it was an important role. There's Daryl Lefevre was a huge help. Caitlin Bosch, who was also listed as a producer, was great during the production cycle. And all those people play critical roles, but they tended to be more to a specific part of the process. So Daryl and Carolyn and Caitlin were more involved during the actual 6 weeks of production, and maybe not as involved during post-production, since post-production lasted, I don't know, over 2 years.
Well,
So Yeah.
That was another thing I was going to ask you about from the post-production standpoint. I watched the entire credit roll last night. And,
wow.
Well, because I always like to see if there's folks I know, and I know Seth's in there multiple times.
Yes.
Because he's a great visual effects artist. But you guys it looked like you have a film incentive from Australia. You were doing digital effects with some Australian houses. Is that correct?
That's right. So we originally were working with a local house, and then that expanded to a few more houses, one of which was in Canada. And then ultimately we ended up working with primarily an Australian house as well.
So I'm assuming Seth, as director with Final Cut, he was interfacing with all those guys and saying, hey, or girls, as the case may be, this is my vision. They would give him pre-comps, and he would sign off on all of those looks. I mean, he was that granularly involved, correct?
Definitely. Very much involved in every step.
Good grief, man. I tell you, how long did post on this film take?
So we had a locked cut that Seth did. Usually the editor should not be the director.
Yeah.
But in Seth's case, he nailed it. And so we had a locked cut in November of 2022. And then visual effects took another year and a half. And then, of course, not really until you have all the visual effects done. The score was by Cody Fry, who was awesome. That got done over a fairly long period of time. So Cody had a lot of time to work with it and tweak it and try different things. And all that ended up, I don't think we did the Atmos mix until June of 4 months ago. So
gotcha.
It went almost right up until the very end.
So here's the level of nerd I am when it comes to production and post-production. I noticed not only did you have a Steadicam operator, you had a Movi operator. And,
right.
And so I bought I bought number 63 or 64 of the first Movies. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. I got in early on that and loved it. And then, you can get a gimbal for $20 off of Temu now. So,
right.
But I love the fact that you had a Movi op as well as a Steadicam op. So that was really, really cool. So, looking back on your career, you've done it almost all. What scratches the creative itch the most for you right now?
I would like to go and direct something again. It's the most fun, and it's such a collaborative process with so many different artists. I still like making music, and there were aspects of producing that were interesting, but I'd like to direct something. I've got a script that Seth and I co-wrote that I would love to be the next film project. It would not be particularly inexpensive to make, so we'll see if we can find the money for it. But who knows?
How has your work at Lipscomb changed your filmmaking process? Because you've got some creative kids there. I mean, how has that changed the way you envision a film and plan for a film?
Well, it makes everything feel much more current, and you're around young film students who are always up for trying new things. So it's actually been really invigorating, and I think I'm not sure that I would have tried to take on the projects that I've been working on in the last decade without if it hadn't been for having this role at Lipscomb. It's been a really good thing to do.
And you've been able to bring some of the students in your program alongside in your different projects, correct?
Yeah, that's been one of the benefits, I think, of being a student here is we love coming up with commercial projects where we can bring students on and have them working as PAs or in the office or even on the post VFX team. In the case of Sketch, we had 15 or 20 students and recent grads that worked on the project, and they get paid for working on it, but they also end up with IMDb credit before they leave. We have a really good animation program. I'm also producer on Mike Naraki's latest animated series, The Dead Sea Squirrels. And so we use student animators on that for portions of each of the episodes. We use some theater students to do voice work on not the main roles, but some co-starring roles, and all that's been really rewarding.
How much fun is that, right? I mean, it keeps you young, correct?
That's right. Yes.
And
how many jobs could you be in your 60s and young people have to listen to you?
Yeah,
That's a rare thing.
That's right. That's right. I think when Russ Taff played the Mule House a few months back, I was there, and I actually got to talking with the camera ops in the back. And I think he was a former student. He'd gone to Lipscomb anyway, and he was just talking about the practical experience he got from the program there. So, but
nice. Yeah.
Anyway, Steve, thanks so much for taking the time to walk through this. Sketch is great. My wife really enjoyed it, and she's pretty hard to please. So
that's good.
I mean, it's great. It's tight. Seth did a fabulous job. You did a fabulous job. And I can't wait to do a second watch, because I'm going to sit there and try to pick a few things apart. But it's a great piece, and I appreciate you talking to us.
It's great talking to you, Robbie.
All right, guys, we actually had somebody who has sold records, produced movies, been in Hollywood on our show. Should this be our last episode?
It should be. This should be our last episode.
I mean,
enjoy. Good to see y'all.
This is
For some people, it may be their first episode that they listen to.
It might
Could be their last.
Probably their last. So,
No, that was a great interview. Really good.
I mean, Steve's great. He's so reliable.
Yeah.
What?
And I have not seen the movie. I've wanted to see it. I heard you said that y'all watched it, and Bonnie liked it as well.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Now, it's got some suspense to it. It is not Angel
it's
Studios.
a monster movie, but it's a family monster movie.
It's a family monster movie. And one of the things that struck me, Steve said, as they were, they'd taken it to Toronto International Film Festival with great reaction. And their agent said, hey, I think you're going to have a deal for you. Check out. And Steve's like, I wish he wouldn't have told me that.
Yeah.
It just had no comparables. It had no comps.
Yeah, that's what. Okay, so that was a term I was not familiar with, first of all, but picked it up in context. But yeah, comps, and that's the thing that kills so many projects. They keep saying, "Why didn't Hollywood do anything new?" Well, this is why, because they're afraid to take a risk on something that has no comps, that has not been done before. So it needs to be a sequel. It needs to be a reboot.
You remember we go back Days of Thunder. Top Gun on a track.
Yeah. Give me that little elevator pitch. That
Speed, Die Hard on a bus.
Yeah.
Passenger 57, Die Hard on a plane.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the suits want. They want to be able to, because if it bombs, they're going to get fired.
Yeah.
So, which you learn all that if you watch The Studio on Apple TV Plus with Seth Rogen. Great movie. So, Jay, what did you think about his movie career?
Well, the thing about it is, until, when we went to Nashville last year and met him, you'd told me some of the stuff that he'd done. But really, until I heard this interview, I didn't realize he had been doing all this film stuff. So this was kind of new to me. I didn't know. I'd seen an advertisement for Sketch along the way. I knew, again, from our little trip up there, that he had done some stuff. But and you had met him, I think, at NAB or something.
I've met him probably half a dozen times.
Yeah. So, but I didn't know. I mean, my familiarity with him was mostly that early music that we talked about before. And so this whole film thing is like a whole new part of Steve that I didn't know. So I watched that little clip, the Darker Colors short film that I think is basically became Sketch.
Yeah. So Steve was the producer, as we said. We talked about it. Seth Worley, who I'd love to get on, who Seth's incredibly talented, is the writer, director, creative force behind that. And just his whole relationship with Steve is pretty fascinating. So
but even that little short was great.
Is it not awesome?
And
I need to watch that.
Yeah, I love that. The little girl was just fabulous at the end.
She talked like you did on last week's show.
Right.
And I felt like I'd seen her before, but I didn't see that she had any credits before.
No, I didn't know her, but she's
She's great. I mean, just from the anyway. I'm thinking about the movie, not the clip. Which is it wasn't the same girl that was.
No. They recast everything. So,
no, but I watched the trailer for Sketch on Angel. We've got the app. I'm not a member of the guild at this point, so I didn't.
I bought it.
I'll have to either join the guild or buy the movie or something. But I definitely will. I'll be watching that soon, one way or the other.
It's a lot of fun. So, I mean, and it's well done. And I would, like I said, I'd love to get Seth on. And
Seth does the. You mentioned this before, but he's the visual effects person, right? I mean, I know he has a crew that's doing those for him. But
so Seth wrote it, directed the movie, and then he did a bunch of the digital effects. Seth worked for, he may still work for Red Giant.
Yeah, right. To mention
Magic Bullet Effects,
yes.
and which Red Giant is now owned by Maxon. And so the darker color short film was a proof of concept using Maxon tools, Red Giant tools.
Yeah.
So.
And he'd also done a demo of effects for Red Giant. That was a separate piece, right?
Yeah. So Plot Device, which you need to go back and watch.
Yeah, I want to go check that out too.
It's a lot of fun. So Seth's incredibly talented. And Seth actually did a Spy versus Spy short for Red Giant that Steve Taylor was cast in.
Wow.
And that's how
that you mentioned he acted as well.
And I just didn't know what was the connection between Steve and Seth. And I'd asked Seth, what's your connection with Steve Taylor at NAB? At a party we were at. So, and
all the stuff with Don Miller too.
Yeah.
I mean, I followed Don Miller and I've read a bunch of his books, and I mean, I had no idea. So I want to go back and watch that movie now.
Blue Like Jazz is pretty good. So very, very different than the book, obviously. I would love to see Story Brand the movie from Steve Taylor. That would be pretty
I heard you talking about the Story Brand certification. I was very close to being certified myself.
Really?
I was like about to sign up to go to their course and be certified, and it just didn't work out. So when you said that, and
that should be your second career.
Yeah, maybe.
Or third.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of Story Brand certified people here in town. James Barnes is.
I was going to say James is who I thought of when you mentioned that.
Yeah. And it's pretty effective. But I was fascinated that the screenwriting workshop they sent Don Miller to help write the script for Blue Like Jazz is what was the impetus for him to start Story Brand.
I know. Yeah, that was just amazing. I mean, that could be a whole episode in its own right there. Yeah. But getting back to Sketch, I mean, like I said, it was just the process of hearing how that came to light. Because Seth Worley comes to and said, well, it's dead. It's not going to happen. And he said, well, let me see what I can do to help raise some money. And this idea that that's a possibility, that's, we were talking about, things moving out of Atlanta or whatever, but, Hollywood does not have the grip on production and producing, feature films.
It does
really high quality feature films anymore. So that's a kind of an amazing thing to me. And he's got Tony Hale, who I love from Arrested Development, who's Buster in Arrested Development. He lives in Birmingham now.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
He's in Birmingham. I think that he's from that area originally, so he's come back home. That's 3 hours, if that much, from Nashville, maybe two. But anyway, so you think about these people that are here. Darcy Carden, I loved her in Good Place. I thought she's always been good. She plays the mother in this thing. So,
No, she's not the mother. She's a real estate agent because the mother is deceased.
Okay, but she has the same last name.
She's not the mother.
Okay. Well, because they talked about being orphans in the clip, so I wondered about that. Morphans.
Okay. Maternal orphans that are morphans.
I loved that. I didn't get that before. And I see the production company is called Morphin Tom.
Yeah,
so that was great. Yeah, I'm going to have to watch it. I can't wait to watch it. And because I remember seeing the trailer in the theater. I can't remember what we were seeing. One of the Mission Impossible, maybe whatever. Yeah. But I thought, God, this looks really interesting. Because one thing I love is, and this is so hard to do. I've been asked to do this as a graphic artist before, is to produce something that looks like a child drew it, and we always do something that looks simple, but that's wrong. Because you look at these drawings that they come to life in the movie, the monsters that she draws, and they are very authentic in terms of being a child's drawing, but they're incredibly detailed. So it's the capturing that just got me, right off the bat when I saw the trailer. So they really understand what's going on here.
You should watch it this weekend. Yeah. I think you both would really enjoy it. To me, it's a Pixar level quality story.
Well, the other thing too is the things I've heard about it. It is such a good family and wholesome movie. and just something that we probably really need more than ever right now.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I appreciate them making for that. And Angel Studios, I know, I've seen some other pieces from what they did, and I love the fact that they brought it to them, and they didn't have a whole lot of notes on things to correct.
A little bit of language
change.
cleanup, and that was it. And but I will tell you, this is not a movie your 6-year-old needs to watch.
Right? Yeah, that could be a temptation. They go, "Oh, this is a kid friendly movie," and from what I understand, it's not.
No, it's not. I mean, it's not. There are some very...
We're not getting into the Conjuring level.
Yeah, no. Well, it's not anything like that. There's just some heavy themes of loss and depression and whatnot. And there's some folks who, when it first came out, they replied on the Sketch Facebook page, "I walked out with my children." It's like...
Oh, really?
I mean, come on. It's... Read what it is and pay attention, but it's got a 95% fresh score on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's
right
great.
now, which is awesome.
Maybe it'll be the comp movie for somebody else.
I think that will be. You probably will have people go, "Give me another sketch."
Yeah,
and the thing is, it can be so wrong-headed sometimes, because it's like sometimes, lightning in a bottle. Why don't we say, come up with something else new? But yeah, I think you're right. People will go, "Oh, this is something."
And
we
I don't know,
what
was the Ryan Reynolds movie If or IF?
Which I never saw that.
I never saw that either, but it just the
Kinda had a
clips kind of reminded me of some of this.
There's also a movie that the guy, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, the guy that played Captain Marvel or Shazam rather than the Shazam movies, that was, I think, based on a children's book about a magic crayon, and had kind of a similar feeling to it. And I don't know if that's a good movie or not. I just remember seeing that was something that was in there.
Well, $9 million made at box office on a $3 million budget.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice return.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. So, but anyway.
And they got wide distribution through Angel Studios.
Yeah,
right? So that's another big thing.
Even worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, it was on here.
Oh yeah,
was it?
Yeah. The I forgot what's the last. Was it Fantastic Four? Is that the last thing we went to go see, or Superman? No, we went to go see Fantastic Four together.
Yeah, Superman we all saw individually.
Yeah, the poster was in the lobby.
Yeah. Well, that's where I saw it first.
Yeah,
then.
Yeah. So, but thanks for Steve for spending some time with us for that. So I feel like we've almost arrived, guys. After 352 episodes, we actually have someone of consequence that's not related to us on the show. So anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time around.